Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello, everybody. How is it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. The sun is shining where I'm at. It is sunny and warm, and it feels good. I'm so happy to be here to share more feel-good, positive stories with you today. I have lots of good kindness stories today, actually. So many people are doing so many kind things. I know our world is a little bit crazy, like I've been saying in so many episodes over the past couple months, but there's so much kindness going around, and so I am here, of course, to share that kindness with you. I know I've mentioned this a million times, but this is the best part of my day. Right now, I am just finishing the end of my schooling, and I am jam-packed busy with so much schoolwork, and this just brings me so much happiness and so much light and just brightens up my day when I am drowning myself in books and sitting behind my computer for hours on end. So this is the best part of my day, and I love being here. So I am just going to get started with sharing those feel-good stories with you, so hopefully it brightens up your day as well. Alright, so the first story I want to share with you, like I said, there's so much chaos going on in our world. You might be feeling a little bit stressed, whether it's the pandemic or anything else going on. There's just so many things going on, you know. Some people might be really experiencing just a lots of frustration lately. And so this is why this tourism company in Iceland is kind of offering up this strange but very interesting new source of a way to relieve some stress. So if you are somebody that has been feeling a little bit anxious, a little bit frustrated, a little bit stressed out with things going on, listen closely because you might want to do this. It is quite hilarious, but I think it definitely works. Okay, so people literally from all over the world are recording their yells of frustration, and these are going to be broadcasted into the wide open Icelandic wilderness. I'm not even kidding. So it's called the Looks Like You Need to Let It Out initiative. If you want to go find out some more information, go to lookslikeyounneedtoletitout.com. This was created by Promote Island, and it just basically launched as a means of helping people release some of their anxieties and stress and just encouraging them to think about how they can enjoy traveling in solitude once traveling restrictions are lifted. So this tourism company is just offering up a way for you to scream, basically, and it gets broadcasted all over the Icelandic wilderness. Kind of interesting, I have to say, and screaming does help. That is a proven stress relief. Believe it or not. I know it seems a little far-fetched, but this therapist and mental health consultant, Dr. Zoe Aston, supported the psychological benefits of this project and said that screaming as a therapeutic tool was developed in the 1970s as a way to release pent-up emotion. And the psychological response to wanting to scream lights up a part of our brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala activates when we are under threat or something that we have all experienced, of course, in the past few months. So part of the beneficial effect of screaming comes from being able to make a loud noise into a wide open, undisturbed space, and this literally just allows your amygdala to release the stress stored there and move forward. So in other words, get outside and start screaming into empty fields, or head on over to the Looks Like You Need to Let It Out initiative website and you can scream in the Icelandic fields. Such an interesting concept, I have to say. So Not all the recordings are screams of stress or distress, I guess. Some people yells, like, just kind of just to yell, and maybe it's on, like, the sillier side. Like others will just, like, use their 10 seconds of sound to, like, say hello to, like, the beautiful landscape. So you don't really need to go to this website and just, like, start screaming. You can do whatever you want. If you want to let some words or some frustration or words of gratitude, whatever you want to let out into the Icelandic wilderness, this initiative is letting you do so. So the website does warn you that anyone experiencing more pronounced mental health issues ought to seek professional help immediately. This is not just your quick fix for your mental health, but for anyone who else just wants to simply do this by feeling a bit better while you're overwhelmed during some difficult times, a scream into the scenic Icelandic void might just be the right pick-me-up. So if this episode isn't quite enough of a pick-me-up for you, go scream into some Icelandic wilderness. Honestly, I might do it myself. I'll keep you updated on that one. Alright, now my next story is just some positive things that people have been doing to brighten up people's mood during this pandemic. And they are called, this particular group I want to talk about is called the Wine Fairies of Long Island. And they are going to local communities with just spreading kindness and happiness during the pandemic. So there was a Facebook group that began by Pamela Dial, and it started with 100 people in this Facebook group, and it grew to 32,000 in less than 2 months. So for the past 3.5 months, they've just been bringing smiles and laughter to the neighborhoods with just different gift packages. So she says you just make a little package, wine, goodies, treats. People do stuff for kids, and then you can just bring it to somebody's doorstep, or you can do it anonymously if you want as well, or you can sign your name to it. It doesn't matter. It says we're all stuck at home with our children. Wine showing up on your doorstep to get you through the day. What's better than that? Not much, except for maybe screaming in the Icelandic wilderness. But many of the people that are in the group actually kind of dress up in some costumes. There's different, like, pandas, turkeys, Captain America. There's a pink fairy, of course, because it is called the Wine Fairies. And they just say dressing up as characters just makes people laugh, makes people have a good time. People just enjoy it and just brightens up their day a little bit more. So those who do join the group don't have to necessarily dress up in a costume. You can just simply bring over a gift package, and you can leave it on a neighbor's doorstep. Or if you want to join the people in the costume, you can dress up in your own costume and go dance your way at somebody's doorstep as you leave some wine there or whatever you're leaving. But one person in the group, her name is Risa Fear, and her husband, they've gone to 400 houses during the pandemic, strictly just to make people smile. She says, I've pinpointed certain people that are going through hard times, single parents, people that are just not in a good place right now. She says, and I love the reaction that I get. I'll be walking around and people are looking when I go on main streets and I'm dressed as a chicken or the poop. And I get a lot of questions and a lot of stares and stuff, but I also get a lot of laughs. She says, people need to laugh and have a good time, and I feel like that's what we're doing for people. So, yeah, the group has also raised thousands of dollars to give to food pantries by selling, like, their t-shirts across Long Island as well. So, if you want to go check this group out, it is a group on Facebook. You can, the Wine Fairies of Long Island. There's a lot of people in the group. If you are in Long Island, you want to be a part of it, go check that out, or just go look at the group and donate if you would like to. I love seeing all these quirky, weird things that people are doing to bring others smiles during this time. It makes me smile myself. So, now, my next story is about Shaq. Yes, you know Shaq, the very, very large basketball man, Shaquille O'Neal. Pretty cool. So he is no stranger of being featured in headlines. He does so many random acts of kindness, so many good things for our world, for communities, for people, just all around. Shaq has been in the headlines quite a bit, especially during the pandemic. But it's not just because of his, like, legendary sports career. He's literally just having a heart of gold and just spreads kindness every single chance he gets. And it's so, so cool. So, in addition for being hailed for his charity work and some random acts of kindness, Shaq was, I guess, he pulled over to help a Florida woman who was in a car accident last week. And I guess according to the sheriff's department, Shaq pulled over to the side of the I-75 when he saw the woman's tire blow out. After making sure that she was okay following the collision, he waited with her until the law enforcement arrived. And then Shaq left the scene shortly afterwards, but not before greeting the surprised officers with a fist bump. There was some cam footage, if you want to go check that out on the internet. And the sheriff's department posted the video to social media, and of course, it went viral because it's just Shaq being a kind human and helping out, and it's been viewed over 400,000 times. Of course, this is not the first time that he's been filmed doing something kind, but this is just another example of him showing kindness every single chance he gets in any kind of interesting way. So there you have it. Random acts of kindness to start off today's episode, as well as a little bit of a stress relief tip that you can do by go screaming into the Icelandic wilderness. But it is time for a little bit of a break. But when we get back, like I said, I have so many fun kindness stories to share with you today, including something that a man has been doing who usually works at Disneyland to bring people smiles. But now he's dedicated his time, since Disneyland has been closed, he's been dedicating his time to bringing smiles to people in a different way. You're not going to want to miss this story, so stay tuned. I will be right back to share lots more with you.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. In case you forgot, in the last 100 episodes, I am your host, Alyssa Jo, and you already know it's my favorite part of my day to share these stories, so let's just jump right back into it. I want to share this next story about a city in Alaska that is actually housing its homeless. And they're saying that it's possibly the nicest place in America. So a city that's known for its cold climate, they just want to warm hearts and ensure that their residents are staying safe during the coronavirus crisis. And that literally includes everyone in the remote city of nearly 300,000 people, especially the homeless. They want to make sure everybody has a roof over their head. So they say since COVID-19, our community has come together, and it's been an amazing transformation that I never thought I would see. People are supporting local businesses, the homeless population is finally being cared for, and city leaders are stepping up and making us proud. So when Alaska issued the hunker down order due to the novel coronavirus, the staff at the Catholic Social Services knew that they needed to act very quickly to get the homeless population off of the streets and out of the crowded shelters to just stem the disease spread. So this, of course, meant finding private places for as many homeless as possible. So Molly Cornish, the community engagement director at the local Catholic Social Services, she says, we knew that getting these individuals into their own residences was going to be the safest option. So to the CSS staff, they worked around the clock to find hundreds of homes for these people, but their success has really created kind of a new problem then. Those that were being rehoused often lacked the necessities that so many, take for granted, like our soap, our toothpaste, toilet paper, which we all know has been a struggle to obtain during the pandemic, at least at the very beginning. I bet you all of us have a garage full of stacks of toilet paper these days. So, they were struggling to have those necessities that we often just take for granted because we just have them in our house. So they kind of sent out a call for help on social media. And it was picked up by the Coronavirus Days of Caring. And that's a Facebook group of the city's residents. And they collaborated with local businesses that have ongoing partnerships with the CSS, as well as the Hotel Captain Cook. And they started they started a drive. So residents could drop off necessities, and it would just then be distributed to a newly housed person. And not only that, for every single selfie that was taken during the drop-off, the hotel would give a $10 tip to staffers who had temporarily lost their jobs due to the pandemic. So just an all-around, so much kindness and strong things going forward. So when the drive concluded, the 2 massive box trucks full of household items had been gathered, and the CSS, so the Catholic Social Services, now had everything they needed for anyone who walked through their front door. They said that people were so generous, and it was so wonderful to see. So there was a peaceful march on June 5th to protest the death of George Floyd, which also inspired similar steps to help community members. So after the 1,000 residents gathered, a local art gallery launched a social distancing charity event, just kind of featuring photos of the protest. And they said that the turnout was fantastic. People just kept coming to support and donate, and they actually raised $23,000 for groups serving Black and Native residents. So they say that the generosity and the kind of the locals it's just incredible to see. So lots of positive things happening in Alaska at the moment. All right, now I did promise you before the break that I was going to share a story about a man who originally shares smiles at Disneyland, but now he's sharing smiles to thousands of people during this pandemic. His name is Billy Flanagan, and the way that his friends describe him, they say that he's just a perfect example of how a little act of kindness can go a very long way. And I mean a very long way. So he's an entertainer at Walt Disney for nearly 40 years, and he's ridden his bicycle thousands of miles over the past few months, just undertaking a lot of physical work, and it's just for his one simple mission, he said, to deliver a little cheer. He says, "This is my way to be social and be safe at the same time. I ding-dong the doorbell, back up, and I do my song and my dance." So his simple tune, it's personalized for the person, and it comes with some choreography and his trademark Flanagan smile that he has entertained Disney visitors in shows. He has been a part of Finding Nemo the musical, Tarzan Rocks, and Hoop-Dee-Doo musical Rev. So I don't know if you've ever seen him at one of those, but he's been a part of those. And these surprise visits have even been named as a Flanagram. So social media accounts there's so many different photos. If you even want to check out a hashtag called Flanagram, you might see some photos of him. He's literally just been biking. He has literally cycled more than 3,000 miles. He's seen about 265 friends and colleagues just biking around. So not bad for, this just casual idea that he had. And then shortly after that Disney was shut down because of the pandemic, that's when he was riding his bicycle when he realized he was near the home of his friend Hannah. And he said, I think I'm going to go by and say hello. So with the stress and loneliness of social isolation weighing heavy, his friend was extremely moved by the visit, and on social media, she described the experience. And this is what she wrote. I just had to share it with you. She says, "He stood on the sidewalk and I sat on my stoop and we chatted for a while. When he left, I burst into tears. I hadn't seen my friends or castmates in weeks, and it was amazing to have a face-to-face interaction with somebody, safely distanced, of course. And then for his part, after meeting, he just decided to visit others. And then his Instagram filled with photos of encounters and friends and all this Flanagram stuff. And it was just super, super cool. So it kind of just started as like one little simple random act of kindness. He wanted to go see his friend, and then it just blew up, and he's been biking miles and miles and sharing so many smiles to so many people. So yeah, he took his show across the country on a cross-country drive. He brought his bike and he made time to ride in all these different places. And then he was arriving in Los Angeles to surprise some friends who he hadn't seen in decades. So basically, he's literally biking around and just doing his little dance, bringing the joy that he brings at Disney World to people's front doorsteps. I don't know how it can get much better than that. All right, now my next story is pretty cool. There's 2 million people in India that have been gathering to plant 20 million trees along the river Ganges. And this is all while social distancing and wearing masks, of course. So in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, I'm probably not saying that, Uttar Pradesh, there's a space enough for trees to grow and space enough for 2 million residents to plant these truckloads of trees while keeping a social distancing. So although the virus has spread fast throughout their country, its threat was not enough to dissuade the government of the most populous Indian state from conducting a mass tree planting campaign along the banks of the river Ganges as part of its pledge to shade a third of the nation under tree cover by 2030. Pretty incredible goal. So the nation's target acreage of 235 million acres would represent an area of the size of Texas and New Mexico combined, if that's going to put it a little bit more perspective for you. So the planting was carried out last week by volunteers, nonprofit employees, government workers, lawmakers, all of whom maintained distance, of course, from each other, and they wore face masks to stop the spread of coronavirus. They said, we are committed to increase the forest cover to over 15% of the total land area in the next 5 years. They say in today's campaign, over 20 million trees will be planted at the banks of the river, which will help in keeping this mighty river clean. They said that many nations have targeted 2030 as the deadline for various sustainability-related goals, and to coincide with the UN's 18 Sustainable Development Goals designed to encourage nations to solve the world's largest problems. So poverty, hunger, pollution, access to clean water, education access, and so much more, of course. So the mass tree plantings have been launched as an easy and inexpensive method of drawing carbon from the atmosphere, with hundreds of million trees being planted in countries around the world. So China, Pakistan, India, Madagascar, and the nations of Sahel, especially Ethiopia and Senegal, all these places are getting so many trees planted. So they say the survival of every tree during mass planting operations is not guaranteed, of course, but compared to changing energy and transportation infrastructure, tree planting is easy, it's inexpensive, and it's helpful in regenerating previously degraded land back to healthy, functioning ecosystems, of course, that we need. All right, now it is time for another break, but when we get back, I have one of the best stories I'm going to share with you. Scientists have created something. I'm not going to give it away, but they have created something that helps them see things from an insect's point of view. Yes, you heard that right. So don't go anywhere. I will be right back to share that story with you and a couple more. So stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. Hello again. We are on the last stretch of today's episode. I have a couple very cool stories to share with you. So, as always, let's jump right back in. Okay, so I did promise to tell you what scientists have designed to get the perspective from an insect, basically. So they have designed the tiny, first of its kind video camera backpack to film what they are calling the Ant-Man perspective from insects' back. Yes, a backpack video camera on an ant. Can you imagine how tiny this is? Can you imagine? It's just so crazy. So in the movie Ant-Man, there is the title character that can shrink in size and can travel by soaring on the back of an insect. So if you've seen that movie, this is kind of, I don't know if they got the idea from there, but that's kind of the perspective you're looking at. So researchers at the University of Washington, they've developed a tiny wireless steerable camera that can also ride aboard an insect, and it's just giving everyone a chance to see an Ant-Man view of the world. So the camera, it streams video to a smartphone at 1 to 5 frames per second, and it sits on a mechanical arm that can pivot 60 degrees, and this allows a viewer to capture a high-resolution panoramic shot or track a moving object while expanding a minimal amount of energy. So to demonstrate the versatility of this system, which weighs about 250 milligrams, about 1/10 the weight of a playing card. Crazy. The team mounted it on top of live beetles and insect-sized robots. And there was actually some of the results that were published. It was just in the past week under Science Robotics online. So if you want to go search it up, search up Science Robotics, and you can actually see the footage and the things that they found from being on the back of a beetle. Pretty crazy. So they say, we've created a low power, low weight, wireless camera system that can capture a first person view of what's happening from an actual live insect or create vision for small robots. They say vision is so important for communication and for navigation, but it's extremely challenging to do so at such a small scale. So as a result, prior to our work, wireless vision has not been possible for small robots or insects. So that was the senior author, Shyam Golata, who is the UW Associate Professor in the Paul G. Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering. So they're saying that typical small cameras, such as those used in smartphones, use a lot of power to capture wide-angle and high-resolution photos, and that doesn't work at the insect scale of things. So while the camera themselves are lightweight, the batteries they need to support them make the overall system too big and heavy for insects, or the insect-sized robots, to lug around. So the team took a lesson from biology. And they say that similar to cameras, vision in animals require a lot of power. So he said it's less of a big deal in larger creatures like humans, but flies are using 10 to 20% of their resting energy just to power their brains, most of which is devoted to visual processing. So to help cut the cost, some flies have a small, high-resolution region of their compound eyes, and they turn their heads to steer where they want to see with extra clarity, such as for chasing, prey or a mate. So this saves the power over having high resolution over their entire visual field. So to mimic an animal's vision, the researchers used a tiny, ultra-low power black and white camera that can sweep across a field of view with the help of this mechanical arm. And the arm moves when the team applies a high voltage, which makes the material bend and move the camera to the desired position. So unless the team applies more power, the arm stays at the angle for about a minute before relaxing back to its original position. So this is similar to how people can keep their head turned in one direction for only a short period of time before returning to a more neutral position. So one advantage to being able to move the camera is that you can get a wide angle view of what's happening without consuming a huge amount of power. So that we can track a moving object without having to spend the energy to move a whole robot. So these images are also at a higher resolution than if we use a wide angle lens, which would create an image with the same number of pixels divided up over a much larger area. So the camera and arm are controlled via Bluetooth from a smartphone from a distance up to 120 meters away, just a little longer than a football field. So the researchers attached the removable system to the backs of two different types of beetles, the death fining beetle and a different kind of beetle, the pinnacate beetle. So similar beetles have been known to be able to carry loads heavier than 0.5 gram, that the researchers said. So they say we made sure that the beetles could still move properly when they were carrying our system, and they were able to navigate freely across gravel, up a slope, and even climb some trees. Can you imagine how tiny this backpack is? Go online, go check it out. It is literally so small. So they said that we added a small accelerometer to our system to be able to detect when the beetle moves, and then it only captures images during that time of movement. So if the camera is just continuously streaming without the accelerometer, we could record 1 to 2 hours before the battery dies. And with the accelerometer, we could record for 6 hours or more, depending on the beetle's activity level. So the researchers also used their camera system to design the world's smallest terrestrial power autonomous robot with wireless vision. Crazy. So it's literally an insect-sized robot, and it uses vibrations to move and consume almost all the same power as low-power Bluetooth radios need to operate. So the team found that, however, the vibrations shook the camera and kind of distorted the images a little bit more. So the researchers solved this issue by having the robot stop momentarily, take a picture, and then resume the journey. So with this strategy, the system was still able to move about 2 to 3 centimeters per second, faster than any other tiny robot that uses vibrations to move, and it has a battery life of about 90 minutes. So they are quite excited about the potential for lightweight and low-power mobile cameras, and the researchers acknowledge that this technology comes with a new set of privacy risks. So they say, as researchers, we strongly believe that it's really important to put these things in public domain so people are aware of the risks, and so people can stop coming up with solutions so people can start coming up with solutions to address them. So the applications could range from biology to exploring novel environments. The team hopes that the future versions of the cameras will require even less power and be battery free or potentially even solar powered. So stay tuned for tiny little insect backpack cameras to become solar powered. That will be quite interesting. Now, I'm going to finish off today's episode with a little bit of spreading some kindness and spreading some love. I want to talk to you about Project with Heart. And this all came when Selena Sarabian was faced with patients on ventilators and just seamlessly ending endless treatments. She's an ICU nurse at the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center, and she just finds herself getting stressed. So she knows that healthcare workers nationwide are in need of personal protective equipment, as well as just a happy little boost. So Selena and her sister Anna, Anna is an emergency department nurse at Sutter Medical Center in Sacramento. Together they started Project with Heart. So the group makes scrub hats with the goal of protecting frontline workers while just, of course, bringing them together and bringing some smiles. So they partnered with a Sacramento artist named Tim Collum, and he used a heart print as a design on the hats. And the project is funded by donations and purchases of the Collum's custom print. All of these proceeds, of course, go to the project. So when the pandemic began, they noticed the shortages of PPE was a lack of scrub hats actually as well. So while in the past they were only worn during certain occasions, COVID-19 has required extra precautions like head coverings. So Protect with Heart raised about $27,000, both through purchases and donations to make scrub hats, with just a cost of $10 each to produce. And the project will ship the hats to hospitals in needs. So the project has been in the works since March, figuring out how to get the print on the fabric, working off the details of the hat design, waiting for the manufacturer to reopen. All this kind of stuff took time. But the sisters are very excited to pick up the first box of about 1,000 hats from their manufacturer in San Francisco this week. And they were able to pull together production with help of their company, Annie and Isabel. And these nurses started their designer hospital gown company in 2010. And they were able to use their manufacturer to produce these scrub hats. So they've already been doing lots of stuff already in this kind of area. So the Protect with Heart's current goal is to raise about $50,000 to make close to 5,000 scrub hats, but they would be blown away if they could even make more. The project also aims to ship boxes nationwide to hospitals that are very hard hit by the pandemic. Big Heart donors can sponsor an entire box of hats with a $500 donation if you would like to do that. And it includes a little personalized note as well. So if you do want to go be a part of that, go check out the project Protect with Heart. They are looking for donations. They're looking for people. If you want to help spread kindness and keep our frontline workers safe, go check out their website and go see what you can do to be a part of that. All right, well, that is all I have for you today. I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I so appreciate you being here. It is the best part of my day. I've said that 5 times today, and it's because I mean it. So thank you so much for listening. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you are notified every single time there's a new episode out. We have so many episodes coming out these days. Also, do not forget to like and follow us on social media. I update those regularly. I give you little teases for stories that are coming up in episodes. I let you know when new episodes are coming out. There's so much information to be shared on there. So go like and follow us. As well, of course, leave a 5-star review because it helps out a ton and I love reading the reviews. It makes me smile. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Stay safe, stay positive, and spread kindness every single chance that you get. Till next time, thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.